Call the meeting back to order. Open session.
Lubbock City Council is in regular session, special call meeting. It's 12:37.
All right. I do believe we have a gentleman signed up today for public comment, Dr. DeReese. I will let Mr. Bell introduce.
Well, just Joe's going to introduce, I asked him to introduce himself. However, just transparency, he's a neighbor of mine, and I've watched solar panels go up on his house the last several months, that sort of thing. I have no idea what he's going to say. We haven't talked about what he's going to discuss, so it'll be new to me too. But Joe, J-O-H, Joe, he'll explain. If you introduce yourself briefly.
Sure thing. Well, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for, first of all, having obviously the forum to discuss things like that. As Mr. Bell mentioned, my name is Joe DeReese. Quick background, I initially moved to Lubbock in 1996. I'm actually originally from Germany, and went to the Lubbock public school system. Actually graduated from Tech, both for college and then medical school, and then just briefly left to do my training, and then returned actually in 2015, moving to the residence where I currently reside. I guess part of it is my background, being from Europe, being from Germany. Green energy, recycling, all that stuff is a little bit more prevalent and present. So obviously that's always something that was that I grew up with, and that ultimately it was living through those sunny, hot West Texas summers where the endless sun keeps beating down on you day after day after day. Kind of ever since I lived here, made the notion that solar panels might be technology that one day I would invest in, and ultimately that day did come. Obviously did my research both on more of the selection and installing, and obviously the kind of the manufacturer's part of it, and they hopefully didn't take months to put up. It was about a 24-hour period. Pretty surprising how quick they went up. And then I started to integrate into the LP&L network with the net metering. I want to say December 7th, sometime around there. And it was, obviously, I know I'm kind of I'm not the only one in Lubbock. I know there's actually people in my neighborhood that have it, but I still know that's a relatively new technology, something that is kind of just, at least here in West Texas, becoming more and more present. Other parts of the country, even other parts of the state, it's much more prevalent, and I think they have a couple of things already worked out. But once I started integrating into the electric grid and kind of looking at my power meter and everything, I was a little unpleasantly surprised by currently how it's handled with the city of Lubbock. I'm not an expert in solar. All of this is pretty much self-taught. If there's something I need to explain, please stop. As far as I understand, there's opportunity for questions. But essentially, how currently the city of Lubbock has it set up is you obviously go through an inspection process to make sure that your solar panels and all the electricity is up to par, up to code, and then you essentially sign a net metering agreement. The net metering agreement, simplified, essentially states there's, I think, a $30 monthly service fee, connection fee, essentially allowing me to be connected to the grid, essentially have access to draw power if I need it, and obviously the return power if I overproduce. That's on top of the usual $8 fee that the most residential customers pay. And then, of course, if I consume more than I produce, I pay for that additional power. Really, the main objection I kind of have to how it's currently handled is not so much with the fee, which I mentioned was $30. Looking across the state, that is higher than you pay, even in other city-owned electric companies. And then, of course, if you go to the ERCOT system, which hopefully we will do here in the next couple of years, it's much lower than that. They're roughly around $10. But the main thing that I'm hoping can be adjusted, can be addressed, is what happens to the power that I overproduce. And when I say overproduce, I'm talking about the power that I give back to the grid in excess of the power that I drew off the grid. I just checked my meter this morning, and it's actually a very simple meter, so I think it shouldn't really be too difficult to implement. There is what's called a delivery rate, or a delivery amount, and a received amount. And this is looking at it from the LP&L side. So it means what LP&L delivers to my house versus what LP&L has received from my house. And as of this morning, I have delivered, or I've received from LP&L about 1,600 kilowatts, and I've delivered over 2,000. So roughly 400 kilowatt surplus that I've produced, that I've injected into the system, that I'm not getting any credit for. My electric bill is essentially zero with just the $30 bill of fees and taxes and all that stuff, which comes to about maybe 40, 50 bucks once you include it all. All that excess energy I'm not getting any credit for at all, which does add up over time. Right now I'm already at a surplus of 400 kilowatts, and we're looking at 2.5, 3 months. My peak production, of course, increases as the alignment with the sun changes in the spring months and the summer months, then slowly decreases again in the fall months. But I don't, like I said, have any advantage to overproducing, and then essentially I get hammered again in the summer months when my energy consumption goes up because of the temperatures, and I may not be exceeding what I'm drawing off the system. So I'm paying the higher fees right now. I'm not getting credit for my overproduction, and I'll essentially still be paying excess bills in the summer months when I'm actually using more than I'm able to produce. So that's kind of just a brief summary of why I'm here. I'm happy to go into more details, answer any questions, concerns. And I know there's always two sides to every story. That's kind of just my perspective right now.
Dave, would you explain what the $30 covers?
Sure. There's a certain amount of fixed costs that it takes to operate a distribution transmission system. And so you normally recover those fixed costs through your energy rate for a residential customer. But on the solar customer, where their usage declines significantly, you're not able to recover the fixed costs through the standard energy rate because it's using much less energy. So our rate consultant looked at this and designed that $30 rate to recover the appropriate amount of allocated fixed costs from our solar customers that we're recovering from our other customers that are not solar through the energy charge.
It's also the maintenance on this meter, I mean, it's reading the meter.
Right. I think it's $8 is the metering charge, something that
And
range.
even all the customers will get the smart meters, whether they have solar or don't have solar, and that'll continue on.
Smart meter, maybe I misunderstand it. I think my understanding of a smart meter is that there no longer has to be a physical person going to that meter. Am I correct on that?
That's right.
And I think actually currently a person has to come up to my meter, write down the numbers, and then not even just write down the numbers that are there, they have to compare it to the previous month to see if I actually used more power just in that billing cycle, if I use more power than I produce. Not matter how much I overproduce, just again, every month it essentially starts over again. And if I may, the $30 fee, I understand how they come up with it. That's a common debate when it has to do with solar, residential solar producers. You're going into the grid, there's a cost of keeping everything up, and I completely agree with that part. I understand that I'm essentially relying on the city or the utility to maintain those power lines and to maintain the source for power, and more importantly, in the nighttime, I'm drawing power off. I'm not arguing with that, but I think it's a little. I'm trying to figure out how to exactly explain it, but I feel like you want your cake and eat it too. You're charging me more money for that service, but then you're also not really giving me credit for what I'm overproducing.
Maybe explain if you would, as I understand it, our current contract doesn't allow us to buy power. We actually, maybe you would explain to Joe, our current contract, where the power actually comes from.
And we've got a total requirements contract that we've had since 2004 that prohibits us from buying from anybody else other than Southwestern Public Service. So that's the reason I think that rate was originally set up. We weren't paying customers for energy because it perceived it would be a violation of that contract. Whether or not they would enforce it or not, I guess is a legal question. But so that was kind of the basis for not including the buyback rate.
When might that end?
Contract expires in June of this year, actually, the total requirements contract expires.
So after June of this year, when we have some, additional contracts to bridge us through our time when we're tied to XL, and if we opt in, all that sort of thing, we might have the option we would have the option to consider modifying our current net metering, our rate, and how
Right.
we do it.
We could, and the other question is, okay, so if you're going to do it, certainly we can look at this and the board would like us to do this. It's not a problem. The question is, what rate do you pay the customer for overproduction of energy? Do you pay them a rate based on what your costs are in real time? Because at night he's not going to produce anything. Well, that's when our rates are the cheapest during the daylight hours. If he overproduces during the peak time of day, well, prices may be high on the grid. That would be a different rate. Or you just do an average payback. So we don't have the capabilities right now to do a real-time pricing because we don't know what his real-time energy usage is. But one advantage with the AMI meters that we're rolling out is that you get interval information. So you know every hour of every day what the production is throughout the day, what consumption is, what the production would be. So you could get a sophisticated buyback rate that would be based on real-time pricing if you wanted to go to that extreme. And I know some people do. Others just pay an average of what it costs for it. Those are the
How many net metering customers do we have?
Right now, we have 43, and we have 20 new customers that are pending.
So, growing. Prove them up.
It's growing.
You like that?
Now, one thing I would like to comment on is that the energy rate is much reduced for the net metering customer than it is for the regular residential customer. Regular residential today pay almost 3.4 cents a kilowatt hour. The net metering customers will pay anywhere from 0.3 of a penny to a penny, basically, for energy. So it's a dramatically reduced energy rate. So if they are purchasing in those times where they're a net consumer, they do get it at a discounted rate.
But let's also remember that we're paying that initial higher fee
Right.
to offset. So
So I think the goal of that rate was to pull the fixed costs out of the energy charge and just collect them in a lump sum.
Just a question, Dr. Bruce. Have you, you said right now you are delivering more than you're receiving.
yes, ma'am.
Have you been through the whole calendar cycle? So did you say that there's going to be a time, probably in our hot summers, that it's going to be a reverse half Nelson? You're going to be pulling more than you're giving back. Is that correct?
So to answer the first part, no, I haven't gone through a whole cycle.
Okay.
The second part is, that's kind of my thinking. When I looked at the type of system or the size of the system I wanted to install, I didn't want to meet my energy production in my peak months. I essentially averaged out my annual energy consumption over the 12-month cycle. So taking the colder months, my home is gas heated, so obviously lower energy, electrical energy use. With the summer months, obviously high energy use. So I averaged that out. So yes, my thinking is that in the summer months, I will most likely be drawing off the system.
So that's you're projecting that. You haven't actually been
No, ma'am.
through that. So this is your performer projection, but you haven't been through that cycle to see what that delta is.
You're correct on that, but currently how things are, the best case scenario is that I'm breaking even, meaning I'm producing more than I'm going to use even in the summer months, which again, just projections, are less likely. However, more likely is that I'll be paying for overconsumption despite my ability to produce more. I'll be drawing off the system. It can kind of going back to where currently I'm in surplus, which I feel like with the higher fees that I'm paying should be should be a benefit that I should be receiving, that currently essentially LP&L functions as a battery pack for me. I put the excess energy in, I'm paying those higher fees for something. I know we kind of touched on that already. And then in the summer months, I essentially want to be able to draw that excess energy that I produce up until we're even.
So you could almost go December to December, 12 months, and then you would have a true picture of if you're steady state or you use the battery more or the battery less or something like that.
Essentially.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is it, Richard, is it okay for us to?
Yes, it's just posted.
First of all, thanks for being here.
Yes, sir.
So when you did your analysis, what did you, how did you do your break-even analysis on this? Or I'm curious to the variables you used for that, and then if you don't mind sharing, how long you feel like you're willing to be before you're on the good side of this?
You're talking about the financial investment, or you're talking about the calculating the size of the system? The financial investment?
Financial investment. Payback.
The payback. I'm a little embarrassed to mention the payback period because it is much further out than probably what you hear. Not statistically, but commonly quoted numbers are anywhere from 7.5, maybe up to 9-10 years. I'm projected to go out 12.5 years. The main reason kind of being also the financial disadvantage of the current system. One of the reasons I did this was with the hope of joining ERCOT.
Right.
And to be quite honest, once we're on ERCOT, there are energy plans out there that would pay me for anything excess produced. And at that point, I think that would really drop down my return on investment. And let's be honest, it's an investment. Yes, it does kind of fulfill the energy or environmental side of me.
It's a bit of an infinity buy. It's like buying, like when the cheerleaders come in and ask you to, buy one of those posters to advertise. I mean, you're really not going to get any business out of it, but you feel better about it, right?
Well, I do feel better, but I also, it is a financial investment.
I rationalized that forever,
I think long-term wise, the return on investment is there. It's just a matter of taking on that initial investment.
Did you use a local firm to install the panels?
I wish I could. There is, here in the West Texas area, there's very few. There's one in, I want to say Alpine, down in the kind of the Bend, Big Bend area. Most companies are in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Austin, Houston metroplex areas. I had to go with one out of Dallas. There is one local company that it's very hard to find information on, and I just wasn't comfortable proceeding with them. So there is one local. I don't know if they actually actively install or if it was just an idea, because there's a very rudimentary Facebook page, and that's about it.
Does the system incorporate any type of battery?
Those are separate. Again, technology prices dropping. In 5 years, that's probably much more prevalent. Right now, it just didn't make financial sense to me. We talked earlier about feeling good about this part, but again, it is a part of it is a financial investment, and it just didn't. There was no the return wasn't there just yet. But yes, sir, they do exist.
Okay.
Thanks for helping lead the way. I appreciate that. I think it is worthy of us to learning more about it. I think as you mentioned, Jerry, maybe getting some more information about it. I'd like to know what it looks like the next 2 years, and then what it looks like in an ERCOT world also.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see how we compare to the rest of the state today in our net metering, where we are today.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm curious, what's the capacity rating of your installation?
It's 11.8. I don't think it's kilowatts. It's a slightly different it is kilowatts, but it's slightly different than it has to do with the currency, but it's rated at 11.8 kilowatts.
Mr. Odom, you'd asked us to put a presentation on this agenda for go through our net metering rate, talk about how it works and so on. we've got that presentation queued up, and we can do that now or later, whatever your preference is.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you for coming. You're welcome to stay and join us and go to the presentation. I think, Andy, are you?
You want to go and do that now?
If we do that net meter now, can you stay, or are you on call?
No, sir, I'd like to stay if I could, if that's what we're gonna do next, yeah.
I've got drinks back here and
Well,
help yourself. Sure.
again, I want to say, I know immigrants always kind of have these great sense of emotions, and I really, this is just the setting, having the setting for a citizen to come up, present concerns or complaints, and there at least to be a body to listen is something that I know to appreciate. And I know this won't be solved overnight. I'm not going away. And hopefully we can come to some fair is my goal, fair resolution. But again, I just want to say that just having this opportunity says a lot, means a lot, and I definitely do appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right. I think we've had a little bit of a primer on net metering already, so a lot of this will be some repeat. But net metering is a provision in our tariff today that really basically allows a customer to connect their solar panels to our electric grid. The solar generation is used first, and then any excess offsets the cost of the power that the customer may need to buy from us. So that's a lot of what we've already heard today. All this occurs within each billing cycle. We don't allow any credits to roll over into future months. It's a current reset every month, as y'all have heard. So basically, when the consumer is a net consumer of electricity, the meter is rolling forward like everybody else's meter. When they're a net producer, it actually basically is rolling backwards. And the meter is reset to zero every month, so that customer starts over on a monthly basis. And as you've heard, obviously, solar power is increasing in interest in our community. We're starting to hear a lot more folks interested in it. There are at least one vendor in town who's actively selling solar panels to customers. And so the purpose of my presentation is really to provide some additional information on the rates that we do offer for citizens who ultimately decide to install a system. Again, interest is growing. Solar systems can be an expensive investment. We would ask our citizens and customers to, explore other options, to make sure that's the best option for them. There's the option to do energy audits. I looked to see if I could find independent energy audit firms in town. I've had a hard time locating them. A lot of folks who are doing energy audits are solar distributors or they're air conditioner heating specialists, so they may have a little bit of a conflict in providing an independent audit of the home. But we do offer some pointers on our website. We have a couple of locations on our website, powerful pointers. And there's also an Energy Depot, which walks you through. It's a little bit more specific to your own home, what you have, how many windows you have, if you have one or two air conditioners, one or two heaters, how many water heaters you have, that kind of stuff. So that helps give the citizens an idea of some other areas they can save. Maybe that'd be more cost effective for them than going with the investment in solar. But that's ultimately what we want the customer to be able to be educated on, to understand what would be best for them. If a customer does choose to go with solar, we do offer the rate. We talked a little bit about that. I think a lot of what you heard was accurate. Our tariff, basically the wording in the tariff, this is really straight out of the tariff. Residential customers who installed solar technology capable of producing less than 10 kW on the customer side of the meter are qualified. I understand Dr. Dries is a little bit larger than that. I don't know why we capped it at 10 kW, other than that's the line we draw between a small and a large commercial system. We probably need to fix our tariff next time we bring it to you to change that, because we do have a number of customers that have systems that are greater than 10 kW. Not many, but we do have a few. Also, we offer a rate for commercial customers It also involves wind technology on top of solar for commercial, but basically the same thing. Residential rate is a rate 5 rate. If you look at the tariff, the commercial, small commercial is a rate 11, or large commercial is a 16, which is also the same as the regular commercial rate. As you've heard, all customers must sign an agreement for interconnection. So we have that agreement on our website and can help customers with that. The last 4 bullets are basically what I've already talked about, how the meter runs forward if you're a consumer, backwards if you're a producer. Just to give you an idea on the current rates for a residential customer, as you know, with about a $30 service availability charge, which covers our fixed costs. You can see the energy charge under 1,000 kilowatt hours. In the summer, it's a little over a penny. In the winter months, it's about 0.4 of a penny. And if you're producing over 1,000 kilowatt hours, it jumps to a little over 2 cents a kilowatt hour. And for the winter time, about 1.2 cents. Pass-through of any energy that's purchased, the pass-through portion of our costs are actual. They're the same basically as the other customers are paying for the pass-through power. And then we have the franchise and sales tax. Just so you keep in mind, the energy charge for a regular rate 1 residential customer is 3.381 cents. So you'll see that it is lower for the net metering customer. I did look at, I'd been talking to Greg Taylor about this earlier, and he had said, well, what does SPEC do? And I was looking at their tariff is very, very much the same as ours. Their rates are a little bit lower. Well, their base rate is a little bit lower. It's right at $28 for the base, where we're at $30, so it's relatively close. Their energy charge is about 8.2 cents, which basically combines the pass-through plus our energy charge. So that puts us ranging from about just a little under 7 cents to a little over 9 cents, ranges throughout the year based on what season you're in. So we're fairly close. In some cases we're below them, other cases we're a little bit above them. They also do, though, have a standby charge that's a fixed monthly charge that they add to their bill, and that's not a published rate, and so I don't know what that amount is, but that would be an additional charge basically to compensate them for demand costs that they incur. So I think if you take all that together, my guess would be that their rate would be very similar or maybe even slightly higher than our rate for solar customers. They also do not allow credits for overproduction to be applied in future months. So their tariff is really structured very much the same as ours today. So no dramatic difference there.
Explain that standby fee. That's hard for me to understand.
Well, and again, I don't know the value of that, how large that is, but basically they have infrastructure in place that they have to cover those peak time periods, and so they have computed a charge somehow that will compensate them. So it's just an additional charge, kind of like in our energy charge right now. It's covering some of our fixed. We're on our our service availability charge. It's really covering some of their fixed costs for the most part. It's just not a published rate at this point in time. Any other questions at this point?
Go back to that rate slide. I want to make sure I understand. The service availability charge on the net metering rate includes the meter charge, correct?
It does. It's included. So that what normal customers in rate 1 pay for $8.07, that's included in that $30.
Okay.
It's not in
really
addition.
the additional cost for net metering customers is $22.
That's correct. Yes.
And I may have it done.
Mr. Council, is the way the agenda is constructed, is it permissible or not if Dr. DeReese has any questions based on what he just saw?
You know, at this point, Dr. Reese is a member of the public. I would think that the board could, if it was in their will, could allow those questions. But it's certainly something that y'all would have to consider. But I think that probably the customer or the citizen comment period is what I assume.
Just to give you an idea, I mentioned this a moment ago, we have 43 current residential customers. Their gross power ratings range anywhere from a kilowatt to 16.8 kilowatts, so we have a pretty good size range. The average customer in town it's a 7.5 kilowatt system. We have 20 pending customers. I think Jamie told me we had another 10 sign up last week. So the local vendor who is working very hard to gain some customers, they're being somewhat successful at this point in time. We do also have one commercial customer that has a 29 kilowatt system installed at the present time.
Is that the brewery?
$2.
They told me the other day they think they're going to generate a third of the power that they require. Does that make sense to you, David?
Yeah, although I don't know how they fire their boilers, because, you know, when you make beer, you gotta have a lot of heat.
Yeah.
to boil that beer, and so that, if they're gas boilers, then that wouldn't be taking that part of it. I would think they probably would.
You know, and as of probably 6 months ago, we had 7 customers for months and months, you know, that had signed up. So we've had a pretty dramatic change in the recent months. How a customer signs up for net metering, we do have an interconnection agreement. That's the link to it on City of Lubbock Utilities website. Once they have signed that and once David has signed off on it, that we have approved it, an authorization letter is then sent to the customer. They are then able to take that to building inspection and get a permit prior to the installation. Upon the installation, after that's occurred, then building inspection will go back out and do a final inspection. And then after that, LPNL will install the net meter and will apply that new rate to the customer's account. So that's basically how that works. And just a little bit of additional information. You know, typically systems that generate 100% of the energy needs are very, very expensive. So most normally, customers purchase systems that will just generate a portion or, you know, a pretty significant portion, but not 100% of it. So they will typically always need backup supply from LPNL. Obviously, they need backup supply in the nighttime and cloudy days, things like that. Therefore, the connection to the grid is necessary, and that's one reason for that interconnection agreement. Typically, systems have lives of about 30 years. They most normally come with a 20 to 25-year warranty, which is pretty common. For the most part, they will outlast your roof. So a lot of times we recommend if a customer is interested in putting new panels on the roof, you may want to do it at the same time you're getting a new roof, because more than likely, it's a very expensive process to remove them, replace the roof, and then replace the panels.
I've been in Lubbock 34 years now. I'm on an average of every 7 years getting a new roof. This is West Texas.
Right.
This town, we don't pay them.
Maintenance on the systems is fairly minimal, really mainly just washing them off as dust for somehow gets on there in Lubbock. I don't know how. And then one thing too, that this is just a recommendation, we really would recommend that customers get multiple quotes when they're looking at these, just to make sure they're getting a good deal. Really do their research on these, because it can be a complicated process. Just kind of give you an idea of, yes, sir.
Just as an aside too, as far as concerning that inspection and the intertie between our system and these systems is very important, because it prevents a feedback into our system when we have an outage, which can create a pretty bad problem for our system.
Yeah, you could still have an energized line.
Yeah, that's right, because when the transformers step it down, they're going the other way, they step it up. And in answer to the mayor's question about the standby fee, that's to cover the cost of equipment when the solar system is not in use.
Yeah, I just figured they'd go into the base.
Well, they probably kept it separate because solar has been such an unusual situation in the past.
All right, just to give you an idea on average cost, this is from a website called Energy Sage, which is really kind of a marketplace for solar customers and solar providers. But as of January of 19 in Texas, the average solar cost was about $253 to $321 per watt for a 7.5 kilowatt system, which has been the average of what's been installed in Lubbock. That would give you about $19,000 to $24,000 range for that size of a system. Now there is what's called the investment tax credit, which is today is a 30% credit on your federal income tax that would apply today to both commercial and residential systems. It's a 30% credit. And so that basically in that last bullet takes that cost down to a little over $13,000 to $16,000 for a 7.5 kilowatt system. So that kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like. I think the U.S. average cost is right at $3 a watt. So Texas is in the range there of about what you see nationwide. Investment tax credit, 30% will be in place through the end of this year. It'll then ratchet down to 26% in 2020 and then 22% in 21. It'll go away completely for residential customers after 2021, but there will be a permanent 10% credit for commercial customers beginning in 2022. So there'll probably be, unless it's renewed or extended, there might be a pretty good push for solar installations certainly this year, and it'll start to trail off in the next couple of years. Again, as I said, average size system in Lubbock is right now is about 7.5 kilowatts. Using Energy Sage information again, they stated that a 7.5 kilowatt system in Austin could produce about 926 kilowatt hours a month. In Phoenix, it could do about 1,080 kilowatt hours a month. So you can see it depends on where you live. I would assume we'd probably be somewhere in between Austin and Phoenix on this size system. So probably around 1,000 kilowatt hours, just guessing. So what I've done is I wanted to take a look at what would an average user be paying as a normal customer without solar compared to what would a customer with a net metering, with a 7.5 kW system that can produce up to 1,000 kilowatt hours a month. So I looked over a period of time, and in this instance I looked over 20 years. I did increase rates. I'm just assuming the spread between a rate 1 and a net metering rate kind of stays consistent over the 20-year period. So basically, just wanted to take a look at what we could envision based really on what we know today. For a rate 1 residential customer, they pay $8 for that service availability charge. Over the 20-year life, using the current 3.38 cents per kilowatt for energy and about 6.9 cents for the pass-through, it gets you about $91 a month. Now this is looking at the average customer. The average customer in Lubbock, I know we normally refer to 1,000 kilowatt hours a month. That's what the industry uses to compare rates. But really in Lubbock, the average use is about 885 kilowatt hours for a rate 1 residential customer. That's about 700 kilowatt hours in the winter months and about 1,250 kilowatt hours during the summer months. So pretty good range there. So that's what that $91 energy cost would be based on that about average of 885 kilowatt hours a year. With taxes, it's about $106. The net metering customer, that monthly base charge is higher, like we talked about, $30. Over the 20-year life, and this assumes that solar panel is producing, every moment throughout this time period. But the solar systems do degrade over time. On average, they degrade about 0.8% a year. So the first year, if it can produce 1,000 kilowatt hours, the second year it produced 992 kilowatt hours, goes on down. So by year 20, it can produce about 80% of what it could produce on day 1. So over time, you're going to incrementally be buying a little bit more energy off the market, assuming that your energy usage stays consistent today as it does in 20 years. So overall, that customer pays about $44 a month. So that's $62 savings on a monthly basis. If we look at that system that I was just talking about after the ITC, ranging from $13,000 to $17,000, and you use that $62 monthly savings, about $750 a year roughly, it'd take you about 17 to 23 years to break even, which is greater than the information you heard earlier. Obviously, every home is different, every consumer is different, every system is different. This is just a high-level look at what we're seeing today with our current rate structure. Obviously, it's been pointed out that if there's a different structure, you can cut that down. If you look, our average rate in Lubbock right now is we're right at about 11 cents a kilowatt hour. Right now in California, it's 19 and a half cents a kilowatt hour. If you do that math, in California, that 17-year break even would be about 8 years break even. So that's why it makes so much more sense in California than it may in West Texas, just due to the vast difference in a kilowatt hour pricing for energy here compared to there. And there's a number of states in the country that have 20 cent plus kilowatt hour. There's probably 10 states that their average kilowatt hour rate is over 20 cents. Hawaii's 34 cents right now per kilowatt hour. So states like that, obviously it makes a lot easier case for doing it. I'm not saying it doesn't make a good case for it here. I'm just saying it would be a stretch to have a short payback on the solar system with the current rates that we have here. So that just kind of gives you an overview. Again, this is just one way to look at it. I'm sure there's a number of ways to look at it. I encourage consumers who are looking at solar to really do the math, look at their system, look at what the deal they can get. Again, this kind of assumed they got it at the 0% financing kind of a deal. I mean, any additional costs on top of that system cost will increase that break-even time frame. So basically, in a nutshell, that's what I had to present. Now, if you have any questions, I'll turn it back to you.
Questions, Mr. Bertram? If not, appreciate you putting that together for us. Took some time and everything else, but that's kind of what we're looking for. So thank you all for that and whoever helped do that. Dr. Reese, thank you for being here. If you have questions afterwards in the public comment section, that's closed. If you have anything for any of this afterwards, I'll be glad to talk to you then.
Mr. Chairman, the city council meeting is adjourned.
Okay. Thank you, guys. And ladies. Ladies. Brings us to item 6, presentation and discussion of the updated report on the Director of Utilities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just touch on a few highlights from the information that's in the board package. On page 21, I wanted to highlight that we continue to refund deposits. I know occasionally we will get complaints from the public about the need for us to collect deposits, but with the due pay history, we refund the deposits. It's a relatively short amount of time. So since November 2015, we've refunded $4.86 million in deposits. Of course, we've collected additional deposits during that same time period, but there's a valid reason for collecting deposits, generally on customers that have a poor pay history. And so I just wanted to mention that we do refund them for customers after a period of time that once they establish the pay record. Feed reader error rate continues to improve. The call center wait time went down last month, which is, I guess, a good thing. And then I know we've got reports on AMI, Customer Information System, and the Customer Choice Study. I want to hold off on those for just a second and see if there are any other questions on the written report. If there are not, I would like to. Yes, sir.
I just had one question, just reading through the material. Let me see if I can find the proper page in today's book. There was a Facebook. There was a Facebook question about some guy's his lines or poles in the alley, and we asked about having the pole replaced, or I gather that's what is after. And I just had the question: what is our policy on those? Just for my information,
if the customer wants to see a pole relocated, we will do that, but generally it's at the customer's expense. We figure out the cost to make that move, and then we try to accommodate the customer if we can, if they're willing to pay for it.
Well, I gathered in this instance, it really wasn't this customer's pole or whatever, it was actually his neighbor's, because that was the final comment they made.
And that's where they were messing with.
Yeah, if it's in a situation like that, if it's a problem that is not an individual, was this a pole that was down?
6 feet off the lower line, 6 feet off the ground.
Yeah, well, I'm not real sure if it was the pole that was creating a sagging line, or,
Yeah, I'm somewhat familiar with the matter that you're talking about, and in that case, it was a privately owned pole, so the neighboring customer had a pole that was I guess a intermediate pole, support pole, and it was customer owned, so they were gonna replace it. But in the meantime, we temporaried it so that it was not dragging the ground, and
so we fixed the problem with the lines, but the pole itself was not our.
yeah, it was not our pole, so
Okay.
the other customer, the neighboring customer was gonna make comparison to that pole, but we temporaried it so that it would not be a safety concern.
Okay. Well, I was reading through the material, and I was like, well, that's an interesting, I mean, I didn't know what.
Yeah, we have some oddball situations around town, certainly not the norm, but there are, there's a long history of several different utilities being in this area. We required some things like that.
Mr. McCullough, would you touch on is there electricity, I guess, a significant portion of the city down Tuesday or Wednesday, due to the wind? Yes, you mind touching on that?
I was going to ask Commissioner McGinnis to give a report on that event, because it was a fairly significant event. That's the fourth Emergency Operations Center activation since last December, I think it was. We might have one over. We've had 3 high wind events, of course, the snow event resulted in the EOC activations. Mr. McGinnis, would you give a rundown on that?
Yes, this was Wednesday, March the 13th.
Where everybody sits.
Welcome to the floor, Mr. McGinnis.
Thank you, Chairman. Basically, last Wednesday, March the 13th, the EOC was activated. It was manned a couple of different people from LP&L. Chris Sims was kind enough to do early morning to afternoon, and I did it until 1:30 the following morning. Basically, we had 22 plus poles that were bent, broke, had to be replaced during that period. There were 80 plus work orders during the same time period. On a normal day, we've got, fourth of that. Customers affected, there were 13,000 customers, just over 13,000 customers affected at one point or another during the wind event. We saw sustained winds, 45 to close to 50 miles an hour, gusts up to just over 70 miles an hour that day across the South Plains. We had crews from underground, overhead, service department working that day, coordinating the events. There were 4 dispatchers in the dispatch area. There were dispatchers in the LBC dispatch that were taking calls and inputting those work orders. So it was a very structured coordination amongst many different groups that I would say is very successful for that type of event that day. Response time was very good. We in the EOC, the police department, the fire department, public works are all in the same room. The emergency operations center. If the police gets a call that they've got a line down or a low line, we're able to communicate that information very quickly to our dispatchers, and they're able to respond to that very quickly. Those are basically all the facts that I have. If y'all have any questions, Did I answer your question?
You did, and I think, I guess I want to echo in my office off of 98 that Wakewood, we didn't experience any issues over there, but as I came closer towards this direction, it seems like you guys weren't in tandem with a lot of the police field office folks. Man, it appeared to be pretty good coverage what y'all did. So I don't know if it was preemptive of what you guys had in place, but you guys did have a pretty good response.
I would say at any given,
The reception.
any given time, we were able to respond to that. We actually had 3 foremen and numerous journeyman apprentices at a hotline school in Tahoka. We had to pull those folks out of that training class and bring them back to Lubbock to assist with the activities for that day.
Just a question, is there a protocol on our bucket trucks that what speed, wind, that they don't go up? You know, because some of those gusts were pretty bad. I just didn't know if we say, you know, like for planes, they say if it's over X miles an hour, nobody can land. I just didn't know what our protocol, or if we have one.
I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know what the bucket trucks are rated for. It really depends on the journeyman. If he feels safe enough to get up, 30, 35 feet in the air. If it's a transmission pole, we're going to go higher, 60, 65 feet up in the air. And there were some instances in the previous wind event that we had to do that.
I just didn't know if there is some kind of protocol or guidance or whatever. Certainly salute all of these people, and just wondering if there's some kind of guidance for it.
I saw some that were up there. It was really good. You know, mine's about 15 freshman, so. I was like,
I just worry about it, sorry.
It's a good question. It's something we need to look
I
at.
just think, you know, they are heroic and wonderful, but I think that, you know, in any rescue or like that, you need some kind of protocols that are well thought out.
You know, our linemen do a great job in these events. They work as quickly as they can and safely as they can to get customers back on. But this kind of work is tough, and in those conditions, it's very, very tough. There was actually a neighboring utility that had experienced a fatality during the storm restoration. So those guys are putting their lives on the line out there. We've got safety training, we've got safety equipment, but I just appreciate what they do for us. Appreciate Blair and Chris.
And that's the purpose of the safety issue. I just didn't know.
Right.
For those of you who were here in 2015 when we had Goliath, we had no communication. It was just everybody scrambling, but no plan as such. I think there was a little plan. And then after Mr. Atkinson came, they have sat down, all the departments sat down, and you guys go through what the plan is. If this happens, then these are the things that are going to happen. And so we've now had those 4 events, one being snow in December and December high wind, and they go to the EOC. As a council person, I received an hourly update, told me exactly what's going on with LPNL, told me exactly what's going on with PD, or any other issues, and this is going out to the media. It's going on Facebook, the website, all the places, which have never occurred before. We have police investigators who are office people out directing traffic, because when the traffic lights go out, somebody's got to be out there. They were doing that. Your people were doing it. And so kudos to everybody. But having the EOC activated to everybody right there where you can communicate immediately, it's just amazing, because this could have been really, really worse than it was. I've not heard any complaints from citizens. They know what's going on, and it's just a matter of communication. So thanks to everybody, but for you board members who don't know and haven't been to the EOC, you should go out there sometime, take a road trip, because that's where it all comes together, and everybody survived. And yeah, we had some poles that broke, but they probably were ancient poles to start with, but it doesn't matter, it's all working together.
The EOC is an impressive facility. It's very good. Let me toot Mr. Rose's horn. The public information officers, there's one from police, one from fire, one from LP&L, that are all in the same room. They're able to share that information, you know, whatever magic that they spin on Facebook and Twitter, and I'm gonna leave that to him, but that's what they do, and to get the message out to the public, they do a very good job. So, Matt was there probably longer than I was.
Keeping in mind, some of them were saying they're 12-hour shifts. And these were, you know, ACMs and PIOs and all of those working
Yes.
long hours.
GIS, IT, the assistant city managers, the emergency operations center, LP&L, fire, police, park and recs, public works, the EMS folks that take care of the ambulances around town. They're also there. There's quite a few folks
We've got a
involved.
direct feed to the National Weather Service, so you're getting real-time updates from them about what to expect moving forward. In answer to your question about preparation, there's always some advance notice that these events are coming, and we usually have at least 24 hours to kind of get ready for it, get our truck stopped, gassed up, identify who all is available to work, bring additional people in if needed. So, Jay Parchman out of the EOC does a really good job of coordinating all that.
It's probably helpful that the spring break week in Lubbock, a whole lot more people leave town than come into town. But were we shorthanded some, with people going out of town?
No, not on the LP&L side.
Parks and Recreation went out and cut down trees that fell over houses, and they had all their people.
Yeah, as Councilwoman Joy said, that there were detectives on the police department that were directing traffic, so.
Mr. McGinnis, I was looking at the outage map that day and just monitored it, and it seemed like the most we ever had out at any single point in time was like 5,000. Does that sound right?
Yes, sir.
So we had 13,000 that were affected at any point.
I say total, yes, sir.
Yeah, but throughout the day, the peak outage seemed to me like roughly 5,000. Something that was like in the late afternoon.
Yeah,
When we really had those high gusts.
The peak wind was probably 2 o'clock to say 5, 6 o'clock that evening. Yeah, I've got a outage report that's 16 pages long. Typically, it's 1 page long. This is 16, so. And
It hadn't had any outages.
So I just want to say thank you guys too. I know I've been told that must have been for our people. Appreciate all of their work and y'all's work too. Thank you.
We'll pass it on.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Guest.
So, back it up. Got a few slides on our 115 kV upgrade project, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Bertram. So, this is the 4 major projects. Chalker to Oliver is complete now. There was one task left on that project, and it was completed over the weekend. McDonald Substation, Slayton, and Red Raider, we'll talk about as we go on. The one thing that needed to be done on Chalker to Oliver was that structure T55 that didn't get pulled, the upper section and lower section didn't get pulled together good. That work was completed over the weekend, so that job is finished now. McDonald Substation, transformers, probably the most impressive thing that's happened out there this month, filled with oil and tested. Protection and control wiring, which is generally one of the later steps, is being worked on right now. This one should be winding down pretty quick, like end of April, should be done out there. Here's some pictures of some of the work. See, extending bus work over to the transformer. There's another picture of the transformer. Here's the switchgear lineup for the distribution breakers. And remember, this substation was the one that we had the event on a couple of years ago that had the failure in the middle of the night that woke Mr. Conrad up. But, so we're going to have brand new equipment out there. Hopefully it'll be a little more reliable. Slayton substation, not quite as far along, but they have worked on transformers, steel structure, and some of the other systems. This project will finish towards the end of, or towards the early part of August, maybe a little quicker than that. See some of the steel work being erected, insulated, bushings being put into a transformer. Another view of the transformer, some of the switches that go in the distribution lineup. This is a oil line that goes into the transformer, so you have to pull a vacuum on these transformers, process that oil, do hot oil processing on it, and circulate it through the transformer a couple of times. That's generally how it's done, or maybe just filter and put it into the transformer for the first time it's filled. But it's kind of an interesting process. This was Virginia Transformers, the company we bought the transformers from, and they're the ones that did all the setup, dressing out the transformers and filling them with oil. Mr. Boatman, you ever sit out and watching a transformer get vacuumed overnight? Takes a while to get the vacuum down low. You're trying to suck all the moisture out of that winding. That's the internal parts of the transformer. Top it off with that. Red Raider substation is coming along as well. It should be finished about the same time as Slayton. There's a transformer being delivered, set on the pad, and then starting to putting the radiators on it and putting the bushings inside the transformer. Here's some of the fencing work that's going on out there. This one will have a little more decorative fence. So they're putting the piers in for that. Any questions?
Dale, I'm just curious, what is the mobile substation?
Mobile substation is at McDonald right now, so as soon as we finish up McDonald and get that substation in service. Sorry, you mean the one? Oh, are you talking about the red one?
The one that we purchased.
Okay, it's supposed to be in the summer sometime, but I'm not sure about.
Oh, it's not.
Okay.
And then the other one,
So the rental unit is at McDonald substation. We've got some distribution loads.
I hope that mower this week when I leave.
It's supposed to be here this summer, I'm pretty sure.
oh, okay.
We're gonna name that Mr. Don Boatman Mobile Substation.
When we get our age, so we don't like to use the word leave.
That's all for my report, but I know there's, Andy, did you have any slides on the AMI or CIS?
I don't have any slides, but just a brief update. On page 32 and 33 is the recap of the customer information system or the billing system. We are almost complete. This week will be the last week for the workshops. These are where all employees from all over the city, not all employees, but a number of employees from all over the city come in and...
What pages?
Yeah, I've got a different set of page numbers. I'm showing it on 23 and 21.
Sorry.
Well, there's two different books. One we printed and one we emailed.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. Sorry.
So we're looking at the liabilities here, and I was like, that's pretty
We're looking at the one we emailed, and y'all are looking at the one we emailed.
Okay. Sorry for the confusion. Anyway, the workshops are there to for our employees to help to configure the system, get it to the specifications in place that we're going to want. We're also in the middle of conversion activities. We have a specialist in that is looking at all the old data that we have in our legacy system. And we actually had a meeting last week, and he commented that the existing data in our old system is some of the cleanest he's ever seen, which will really help when we go to conversion to the new system. So that was really nice to hear from an outsider looking at all the data. There's still a lot of work to do there. but that is well underway. A significant impact on the organization will be organizational change management, because there'll be a lot of new processes, a lot of new ways of doing things. All of them will be easier ways to do them, but it's a learning process. It's getting folks to make some change that they may not be comfortable with. So also our consultants have organizational change management folks who've been going around the organization, meeting with all the ACMs, all of the supervisors, with different staff members, to make sure that they understand what's coming, how we're going to address it, and try to ease that change that's coming. So really still this project is in the early stages. We'll be getting a lot more involved with it over the summer as that moves on. So that's kind of a brief recap on the billing system. I might let Todd Stoker, Orit's there too. Orit Reef is sitting back here. She is the project manager overseeing the customer information system. And so she has been heavily involved with that. And then, of course, Todd, who you all have met before, is overseeing the advanced metering infrastructure. So Todd, do you want to give a quick update on AMI before we go?
And really, AMI is progressing very, very nicely at the moment. We are in the middle of our system acceptance test. So as I've given you updates over the various months, if you recall, we progressed through, the initial deployment, working out the system, working out all the processes. All of that is in place, and the system is performing very well. What we're doing over the next 2 weeks is doing basically a dry run, letting the system run, make sure all the processes are working, just to make sure one last time that everything is working the way we expect it to. With that said, we're going to start with the full deployment, and that's going to start ramping up early in April. And so over the course of the next 9 to 12 months, we're going to be rolling out. We have all the customer notifications going out, and we're going to be ramping up on getting that up and going. So we're at a pretty exciting point in the project, because we do see it working. We see the data coming in. We see the benefit of the data, and so now it's really about getting the meters out to all different consumers and getting kicked off from there.
So the graphic on that's actually page 23 in today's board book. We're still in the solution validation. Is that we're a little bit behind on that, but we're doing that at the same time we're doing starting deployment. I mean, there's no hold up on deployment because of that. Is that
correct? On that chart, solution validation is showing at 48%, system acceptance test at 77. Those two tasks are intertwined. As we are going through this, those will be complete before we finish, or before we start full deployment. I just updated, we have a steering committee meeting, which is what we do monthly within the organization. So I just updated the task list, and both of those percentages are significantly up since I put this together at the beginning of last week.
okay?
Yes, sir.
Todd, when I'm reading, we're gonna get notified when they're gonna come and replace your meter. And they're gonna go whatever. In my particular home, the only issue is if it was done when I was gone, I come back to the clocks are flashing, I gotta reset the clock. Some people have had to do it, who knows? So, do I have to be home when it's done?
No, you do not need to be home. What the experience will be is the installer will come to the door, knock on the door. If you're home, they're going to let you know what they're planning to do. If no one's home, they're going to leave a door hanger that says that I was here and I performed this work. So you have an explanation as to why your clocks are blinking. If for whatever reason the installer is unable to gain access to the meter, they will also leave a door hanger requesting the customer to make an appointment, and then we have a process in place on how many times we'll call that customer, we'll go back and revisit in non-business hours. I think in one of the previous board meetings, we went through what that process looks like. So that's when that process would start.
So they come to my door, they knock, nobody answers, they put a hanger, they open the gate, as soon as I'm up, hopefully the hanger, vicious dogs, they'll just go ahead and do it.
Yep. And if there is anything like vicious dogs, they'll leave behind and say we were unable to and go through that. You know, it's a very quick exchange process, and you know, it really is pretty much a non-event other than the brief time that the power's out.
Total water and electric done at the same time?
Water will follow behind electric.
Okay, so right now, this is just the electric meters, and water will come later?
Not later, very shortly behind. So we're going to start with electric, and probably 2 to 3 weeks later, we'll do the same locations with water. And that's really a technology need, because the electric meters build out the mesh, and then the water meters work within that mesh. So it really just helps the stability.
Once your electric is there, you know water is imminent within a couple of weeks?
Correct. And so each customer that is a water and electric customer will ultimately end up with 2 door hangers. We did your electric meter and we did your water meter.
Where are the electric meters being installed?
Throughout the LP&L service territory. So the structure, and there's a lot of competing forces as to what dictates the order in which you deploy the meters. And so it's really a balance between the technology, which really wants to be around near collectors and build out from there. There's a balancing of the workforce and the meter reading activities and how meter reading is done in parallel. And then there's a balance of the geography of you don't want installers spending all their time driving across town. So what we've done is we've done a lot of work, but it ends up being throughout the territory. It's not a progression of we're going to start in the south and move up. It's going to be kind of throughout the service territory over the course of a period of time. You know, a lot of people will ask a lot of questions of when. The fact is we are deploying over a 9 to 12 month window, so it really isn't a long period of time, regardless of exactly which date. And the deployment plan changes over time, depending on if we're ahead, if we're behind, if we have any other scenarios that come up where we have to move crews around. So
You may not have worded that properly. Where, location-wise, are the meters being installed on the properties?
Where the existing meter is.
Okay.
They remove the existing meter and they put the new meter in the meter base.
Whether it's in the alley or up against your house?
Correct. Sorry for misunderstanding your question.
That's all right. We need to know the other information.
Are our own people doing this, or are we contracting?
We have authorized subcontractors. They will be identified with both City of Lubbock Utility and the contractor's ID. All of their information and Matt has been involved all the way through in making sure we're going to have their information on the website. We're going to have safety tips for customers so they know that yes, this person is authorized and should be doing this. So we're trying to make sure that we have as much information out there as possible so people understand what's going on.
Yeah, because scammers could take advantage of the situation where the public knows that people are out, and so we're trying to give a lot of pointers. Our folks will never ask for a payment. They'll never come. Well, I don't think they ever come in their home. Do they?
No, they will not come in the home.
But there's a list of things that to look for, the do's and don'ts, and so we know that this time period could be a period where folks try to take advantage of our customers.
All of the vehicles are white in color with badging and logo, so it's they're identifiable in the alley of who they are.
So they have placards and shirts or something?
They will be in uniform. They will have an identifier badge. They'll have a fleet vehicle, and if anybody's concerned, they can call customer service because they'll know where people are, and they can look at the website and see that this guy is really an authorized person.
because I actually have photos, right, of the installers on our website. So if you're concerned, you can go look at their picture and see if it matches. So.
We had any feedback from the 500 or so that their meters have been installed, and any kind of feedback from those individuals?
And Matt, we really haven't had much.
No, I'd say from my standpoint, which is more kind of the mass communication, we've had zero contact from any of these folks in the initial deployment area. There have been, I think, 3 that have called in the call center, but I don't know if they're for the first deployment area or just people in general getting ahead of it.
We've had a few questions, when am I getting it? But there really has not been much reaction, if any at all, which in my opinion is exactly what we want.
So obviously over the past really 4 years, I've been giving stories about advanced meters in general, and as we've gone through this, we've gotten more specific over the past year. There's been countless interviews, both in the paper and television media about this. But really every week, now every other week, we meet with a group that is not just myself, but the city's PIO, Raquel from the water department, and all of our folks to talk about communication strategy. And so now that we've kind of gotten to this point where we're saying we're sending out the customer notifications to say we're going live in April. I did an interview with KMAC last week, and an interview with Fox. There was an article in the paper on the front page on Sunday. I have to guess I'm going to give another interview here in a second about it. But trying to do it to say, starting this next month, and then really in April, I'll probably give you interviews on a regular basis, because even though we've done a lot of effort to put information out there, for example, all the information on our website, lpnl.com, and the city's page, it's all uniform information. And then we've got a main area on cityloveutilities.com. We put a lot of stuff out there on social media, but we know that once folks get door hangers or people start knocking on doors, they'll start calling in. So I sent basically all of our messages and everything to the city manager, but we'll make sure that the board and the council has that information as well, so that y'all start getting calls. You can tell them, first things first, go to cityloveutilities.com and look at the front tile. We've got a lot of FAQs out there, but if they ask you separate questions, you'll know where to go with that information.
And just as a piece of commentary, as you know, I'm a consultant that works with utilities throughout the country doing these kind of systems, and I can say that LPNL has put more thought into how to minimize the impact on the customer and putting the customer's concerns and everything in the forefront and planning. We've spent as much time in the marketing and the customer communication piece as we have in the technology, and so I think kudos to you guys for really focusing so heavily on making the customer experience the least impact and the best as it can be.
Todd, in my former life, we installed a bunch of these systems all over West Texas going back 20, 25 years. I just want to reinforce what you said. I wish we as a company had done as good a job back in the early days of AMI as our organization here is doing a fantastic job based on my experience doing these with a whole bunch of cities in West Texas.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey, John, just look at the camera and say that. You smile when you say it. Andy, I think, Mr. Taylor, question for you.
Yes, Bertram, I was looking on, it's page 33 of your book, it's page 25 of everybody else's book. We have a risk summary at the bottom of that commentary about the CIS changeover, and that got my attention as well, which I guess I just wondering if you would comment on that as far as the risk summary.
We try to be very transparent, with the good and the bad of these projects, because obviously projects aren't easy of this magnitude. They are ripe with issues that come up along the way. So we always like to highlight some of the more significant summaries. And really, these risks today aren't significant in the scheme of things. One of the things, as Oracle has such tight security restrictions, that our own folks have had difficulties just getting into the system. And so that's been a real issue. That's not a serious issue. I mean, I'm glad that Oracle's security restrictions are so tight that we're actually, our own selves have a hard time getting in, but that has been impediment to working as quickly as we'd like to sometimes. The business process reengineering, that kind of goes back a lot to the organizational change management. How do we do the same job maybe a little bit differently? Because we don't want this new system to be tailored just for us. We're trying to take as much of it out of the box as we can, because any modifications cost us more. So we're trying to go with what their general product offers. And so that means we're learning how to do things a little differently. So, or do you have any addition to add to that?
You just sum it correctly. Actually, the first issue probably will go away in the next months. They are almost like finishing the solution, and this is what they call the comment over here. They're just actually now testing the performance of the solution. So this will go away. And the second one is really for monitoring, to make sure that we don't actually people now that seeing all the availability with the new system, asking like, I want this and I want that, and then we scope creep and so on. So we want to monitor it, and we know that some of the as-is processes will change, I think, a lot to the best, but it will be different from what they have now, so we want to make it and very careful kind of look at them to make sure that everybody will be happy with the result, and starting it now, even before, the year before, so everybody will be educated and trained in the new system and basic processes.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
On that same subject, tell me about system scope creep. What is that?
We just want to make sure that we're on top of all these business changes, process changes, so it doesn't mean that the project begins to extend further and further out. We have a deadline. We want to meet April of 2020 to have the system going live, and so we don't want it to go into May and June and July. So we're doing everything we can to keep it on track.
But it's not how we use the data.
No, this just has to do with looking at issues early on in the process to make sure it doesn't cause delays later on in the project. So.
At some point, you need to have a baseline that it's a kind of stop the system right there, and then you convert based on that existing system. If you've got changes going on after you have that stop date, that delays the project.
Well, the cost and schedule impact if it wasn't monitored.
Right. I think the other concern is that as you have folks working on this new system and playing with the new software and learning what all it can do, ideas start popping into people's minds and they, boy, it'd be nice if our rates would allow us to do that or do that.
Well, that's what I mean.
And so that's why you have
the actual scope of the system. I mean, what you're actually doing is asking for things we didn't originally ask for. Is that what we're talking
right.
about?
And we spent a good year going through the scope of what we wanted out of this project, and that's what TMG Consulting Services helped us with, is what do these systems provide for us? What do we want? What things do we want? So that was done at the beginning as we scoped the project, and then when we did the RFP and got the responses and ultimately selected Oracle, then they have proposed a product with the items that we asked for. And so, sure, as we go through the process, people will come up with new ideas. Oh, I wish I had that. I wish I had that. But we have to draw the line in some instances to say, nope, that's going to delay the project a month if we did that. Or we can say, yeah, we can fit that new idea in within the same existing time frame and go with that. So there's a mix there. So we have to have some pretty strong folks that are looking out and understand what impacts these changes might have on the system, what things we're interested in, what things we're not. What things we can live with, waiting a year to implement after we go live. So it's a process that we just kind of have to juggle on a day-to-day basis of getting the best product we can, but not overreaching and causing additional costs, additional time, that kind of stuff.
So if I read this right then too, we're using the cloud as a backup.
the cloud, all of our data will be stored in the cloud. So we won't have local servers that house all of our data. It'll be all housed in other locations throughout the country. So it provides some safety of data. There's some real benefits to having our data in the cloud. And that's why Oracle's security is so stringent, is because it is housed in our AMI data. All of that will be the same.
Now that brings us to item number 7, presentation discussion of financial capital statements and announcements, et cetera. Mr. Sills?
All right, as usual, just a comparison on how our rates compare to Excel, and then the survey average of like utilities around the state. As you know, we have seasonal rates, and so ours has been set at $111.27 for 4 months now. When we layer on Excel, we see that they had a big dip last month, which was a one-time refund that they had approved back at the PUC back in September, that became effective last month, and then see them bounce back here to just shy of 105. And then the survey average is right in line with Excel at $106.48. Moving on to the actual financial statements themselves, operating revenues are down a little bit compared to the same time last year. Base rates are operating as we would expect. So going back to those pass-through rates we were just talking about, we set rates back in October, set to collect not as much revenue because purchase power costs are down. You can see that effect here. Let's see, on supplies, maintenance, and other, it's down about $700,000, and that's largely due to lower professional service costs that we experienced in 17-18. That was printing costs related to Kubra and that upgrade, engineering, and just lots and lots of legal costs. And then purchase power continues to be under budget relative to our expectations. Transfers, you can see, are down about $750,000 compared to last year. If you'll recall, we were paying a one-time catch-up on the debt service related to Citizens Tower, and now that we're caught up, we're just paying our annual piece of that.
Before you move on, could you speak on that non-operating expense, and it's on page 33?
Sure.
Interest income was up $950,000. You can speak to that.
Sorry, I can't hear you very well.
Non-operating revenues, expenses.
Right.
If you can touch on that, because that says fiscal year 2018, but I'm looking at year over year from 2018 January to 2019 January.
Right.
Significantly different, about $950,000. That's
Yep.
on page 33.
Yeah, and I may have to have Ranu chime in here. I believe that we had something rolled up into that category code that shouldn't have been there. And so what we did, we ended up fixing it with a journal entry. So it's really a timing issue that kind of looks funky in the month of January, but it fixes the year to date. And so as we move forward, you won't see that issue. But the 1.7 million number that we have, if you look at the fiscal year to date number, which you can't see it on this slide, but if you're looking on page 33, that interest income for January 19 fiscal year to date, that 1.7 is right. So,
and it's up substantially, because not only do we have, we issued, we have about 120 million of bonds in there that we didn't have this time last year. And additionally, interest rates are up from where they were this time last year.
Okay.
So that means there was something previous year that was classified in a different spot.
on the balance sheet, cash and investments are up about $12 million, largely due to the deferred revenue related to the PPRF. It's also due to lower receivables. As temperatures get cooler and bills decrease, we see the receivables go down, and
we know turns into cash. And then, like I said, on the receivables, they're down largely due just to the seasonality of moving from comparing to audited year-end numbers at September 30, which is our last summer month, when we've still got hot temperatures, compared to a January financial statement when temperatures are much cooler. And to align with what Mr. McCullough was talking about earlier, capital assets, you can see 9.3 million year to date compared to year end, as we continue to see these capital projects really ramping up in terms of spending. On the liability side, we've got accounts payable and due to, which is basically our due to WTMPA payment, which I think was only about $200,000 different compared to year end in January, and that the rest of it's really just timing with accounts payable, depending on whether it's O&M or CapEx. That's really not one that we can predict, but at this point in time, it's down about 2.9.
And that El Paso gas refund.
Yeah, and that offset the WTMPA. Here is our deferred revenue that related to the PPRF. Customer deposits, Mr. McCullough talked about those earlier. They're up a little bit this year, about $300,000. As you know, we changed the tariff for residential to match and mirror what we're doing on the commercial side. And then other, this 3.2 million, 1.2 million of that is just normal year-end accruals, wages payable, taxes payable, like sales tax and that kind of thing, that just unwinds at year-end. And the other 1.8 million of that is related to customer credits for a large commercial customer that those have been unwound and we're square with them. So that has gone away, which kind of going back to a question that James had, was our other income / expenses should be improved in this fiscal year because we won't have to make any journal entries related to that. So on budget, you can see revenues are down compared to the same time last year, but so are expenses. Both of those are driven by purchase power, as you're all very well aware. Other revenues is up quite a bit compared to this time last year. That's related to the low gas prices that we continue to talk about every month. That makes our units much more appealing in the market. And Massengale has run quite a bit until, I think you saw some slides earlier of it being shipped out, but up to that point, it was running quite a bit. So we have quite a bit of revenues that weren't expected at this time of year. But then on the expense side of that equation here, production is a little bit higher than we would expect them to be at this time of year because of the fuel that they were burning to run that plant. Admin, on the expense side of the equation, admin is down quite a bit. In all seriousness, it is largely due to legal expenses that we're not incurring this fiscal year. And on the other side of that coin is the transmission, where we're not incurring all those engineering expenses related to ERCOT this year. And so overall, revenues are exceeding expenses. Both are down compared to the prior fiscal year. On capital, sorry. I'm so excited to talk about this.
Okay, so I'm looking on the budget page,
Okay.
which I think you just had the summary.
Yes.
So I think what you just said was we've got more off-system sales and power marketing.
Right.
We're 95% of budget on that.
Right.
Outside work orders is 73% of the budget.
Yeah.
Is that related to that, or is it?
No, that is like new construction. So if somebody wants us to put in new lines, underground or whatever, and then it's also putting in street lights. I think their street lights and work orders roll into that line item. So new developments, when we put in street lights related to that, and then just new construction that needs lines ahead of it.
And then I think you also touched on, I'm looking at line 7318 on the production.
Right.
Massengale Station, is that in supplies, the gas?
Right, that would be the fuel that
so
is
that's
driving that up. Right. Yeah, that's right.
And the only other question I had on that sheet, and I think I know the answer to this, but I never remember. So, in the revenues, we got the franchise fee equivalent of 2.9. And then in the expenses, we have the payment in lieu of franchise tax of 3.1.
Right.
Is that because there's a lag in those two, or is it just?
Texas Tech is on contract rate.
Oh, that's right.
And
I knew.
They don't pay franchise fees.
Right.
So.
I knew there was an answer. And I never came to
Yeah, so they are still technically, they fall under metered revenues. So the franchise fee is calculated on 5% of metered revenues.
Right.
We collect franchise fees from all other customers.
Yeah.
We do not,
But we remove
because of the contract.
all the things.
Yeah, right. So that's the difference.
I knew the answer, but I couldn't remember what it was.
Happy to remind you.
And then if you don't mind, can I ask about statement of cash flows, or will you?
Sure, no, that's fine.
Okay. So, that's page 34.
Right.
So if I'm looking at this month figures, we sold 9.4 million of investments this month, 9,377,000. Year-to-date total of 7.6. And our CapEx this month was 6.5 million, roughly. So, year-to-date CapEx, one way to look at it is 7.6 million of those investments, which were bond funds.
Right.
Went into roughly 15 million of CapEx. Okay. Which is, I know we accrue that and all that, but anyway, that's the all ground number.
Right. All right. So it's a good segue. Speaking of CapEx, just a quick overview of our capital program. We've got 68 open projects with 182 million still left to be spent. Out of that, about 90% or 165 million is in bonds, with the remainder in cash. If you've been here a long time, you'll notice that these projects have shifted from primarily being purchasing transformers, doing underground work, doing overhead lines, to the projects that Mr. McCall has spent time working on, showing pictures. It's not to say that we aren't doing those other ones, but those are just kind of small, and they're rolling up into this other category, where some of these other ones, we're starting to see some traction on some of the 115 and 69 kV work. So overall, we spent 3.5 in that month, and one of the metrics that we like to look at is how is CapEx moving relative to depreciation, and year to date, I think it's like 2.6 times. You always want it to at least be 1 to make sure you're replacing the assets that are being depreciated. So things are certainly moving in the right direction. That's all I have. Happy to answer any other questions.
Kind of unrelated, it's a little bit financial, Richard, if you're involved. I was talking to a young lady in the lobby, what helps people with kiosks. From her, I understand that really ramping up, a lot more people are using that kiosk, is that your understanding? And at some point, we may be able to shut down the counter?
Well, when we moved to the new facility across from Citizens Tower, we will really only have one cashier, live person, and we'll have 3 kiosks in that facility. So we're really trying to get more and more people moved to that. And then, of course, one of our goals in the long run was to be able to deploy kiosks throughout the city so folks don't have to come downtown if they're not wanting to mail in or pay online. So that's a long-term goal that we have a dedicated employee in the lobby to try to help drive folks, help them get comfortable with it, because a lot of folks just aren't comfortable, Richard. And
Mr. Bolton.
Oh, yes, Mr. Bolton. So.
You did too.
Yeah, I did too.
See, I've got a convert.
Yeah, got a convert.
We may not ever get everybody, but we'll try to get a lot more than we have today. But yeah, we're definitely doing our best, and we have the kiosk outside in the drive-through too. So now, folks 24 hours a day can come and make transactions at the kiosk. So we hope that will gain some more traction. With the new center also, there was no room for any drive-through. We have a significant drive-through number of folks every day that go through the drive-through. So I know that's not going to make a number of folks happy, but the architects could not make that work. So we will have the outdoor kiosk. It won't be a drive-through kiosk, but it'll be a walk-up kiosk on the exterior of that facility. So we're trying to slowly get people acclimated to what they'll see once we move either later this year or even next.
It's just a paradigm shift, because other than utilities, cities, all of us pay a lot of bills every month. No one has drive-through. City utility.
Yeah.
So
It will definitely cause some upset, but we're trying to ease folks into that idea. We'll probably, over the next number of months, start gradually shutting those down. What we're going to do basically is, as long as those vacuum, whatever you call them, work, we're going to continue to use them, but if they break down, which they do on occasion, we're probably not going to invest any more money into repairing those. We'll just gradually close those down.
Well, Don will be the last one through the drive-through. I want to hook him up with Al Gore to teach him how to use the internet.
What is the amount of traffic is the drive-through?
I don't have it with me, but it's a good size number. We have, dedicated tellers that manage that on a daily basis, so it's pretty well trafficked.
Yeah, I understand those people are now going to walk inside.
They will walk inside, or they will have
One
to.
cashier and 3 kiosks.
That's correct. It'll push more folks through the doors, more than likely.
We did shut our drive-throughs down for just a brief period of time. We planned on shutting down permanently.
That was the night drop box.
That's right.
We will continue with the night drop box at the new facility. We thought we weren't getting a night drop box, so we thought, well, that'll be our first phase of kind of weaning people off of some of these things. But we had quite a bit of upset on the night drop.
Customers upset about the night drop.
So we brought it back.
The lady in the lobby said, when people come in, if there's a line of people waiting to go to the counter, then they'll go over to the kiosk. So maybe we ought to just have a bunch of people standing in line, and then more and more people use the kiosk.
Start winning them all.
Do we have a date for our move over there?
No, not really. They're still saying closer to the December timeframe is what they're expecting. But
December of
this year.
This year?
Yes, sir.
And then, on that note, the first floor is where the kiosk will be, right? And where y'all.
The administrative staff will be on the 5th floor of the tower, but all the call center will be in the separate facility across the street. And underneath, there's a basement that's really the size of that entire parking lot area. That'll house the call center staff. And it's, so if you drive by, you'll see it. It's up. It's not much to look at.
Even though they're in the basement, which doesn't sound like a lot of fun, I understand there's some skylights, so you'll have, Dave, maybe you told me that.
There is an atrium. They've already cut that. There'll be 2 very large openings, and it'll be kind of a glassed-in area where the employees there can go out and take breaks or whatever they need to. It'll also be an access for the meter reading staff to go down. When they come in muddy or whatever, they can go down rather than going through the facility. They can go in and go to their locker areas or whatever.
It should be a pretty slim meter reading staff by that time.
Well, meter techs. I'm sorry, yeah. It'll be meter techs at that point.
All right.
I guess, as a part of this conversation, Andy, going back to Dave's, his analysis or director's report, on page 21, at 125,000, 126,000 pieces of mail, is that, I just want to make sure that we're still making an effort to reduce that, and want to see, are we moving in the direction of getting that out? I know a lot of them start to do a lot of that, their transactions through it now.
Yeah, when we continue to add new paperless customers, it's not a large number, but we'll have campaigns throughout the year to really push that and try to continue to get. We met our first goal to get 10% of our customers on paperless, so we met that goal. We'll be coming back with additional pushes to do that. So that's absolutely one of the reasons we went with the Cougar solution, is because before we didn't even have that option to get people paperless, and we do now. So that's going to continue to benefit us if we can do that. So, even there's 161,000, I'm sorry, that's emails. You can see by that we have a significant number of notifications going out already through email. But the mail itself, the $125,000, that's not only statements, but that could be welcome packets for new customers. You know, we had started a new welcome package for folks who are moving into town to kind of help understand the services we provide and all that. That's for all utilities, not just LPL. But so that includes disconnect notices as well, things like that.
Any other questions for item 6 and 7? If not, I assume everyone here has had a chance to read the consent agenda items 8 through 11. If any of those would like to be talked about specifically.
Has anything been going on?
Anybody want to pull any of those? If not, I'll entertain a motion for items 8 through 11.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda